Frogs. Today I will be painting one. A miniature one. For D&D. I'm Sean, one half of the Printy Brothers. We're 3D printing and painting every monster in the Monster Manual. Today's episode, the Frog. Or, the Bullywug. This Bullywug model is from Artisan Guild. We've used them a lot in this series, they're very reliable. STL is in the description below. This particular model really reminded me of the Incredible Hulk. I mean, this guy is yoked. Definitely not natural either. Bullywugs are not naturally this buff. But we are big comic book fans here, and of course I read The Incredible Hulk, and I decided to actually steal the color scheme of The Incredible Hulk for this model, that being green and purple. The first green that I did for this guy was way too bright though, so I had to paint over it. Whoops, we all make mistakes. Now, as I add color to this model, let's delve into the lore of the Bullywug. To quote the Monster Manual, life as a Bullywug is nasty, brutish, and wet. These frog-headed amphibious humanoids must stay constantly moist, dwelling in rainy forests, marshes, and damp caves. Always hungry and thoroughly evil, Bullywugs overwhelm opponents with superior numbers when they can, but flee from serious threats to search for easier prey." Unquote. Bullywugs believe themselves to be the rightful rulers of the swamps, and are ruled by either a king or a queen, who is usually a larger Bullywug. Any would-be adventurer who finds themselves in Bullywug territory will not in fact be killed, but instead captured and brought to the king and queen to beg for their lives. Bullywug lords have deep inferiority complexes. They may believe themselves to be the rightful leader of their people, but ultimately they crave approval from their underlings. If you're a frog fan, subscribe. Now if you're a turtle fan, you have to like the video. If you're a fan of both, you have to like, comment, and share the video with an existing friend. I thought a funny thing that was mentioned in the Monster Manual is that Bullywugs croak like frogs in order to communicate over large distances. In this way, news of the swamp, including when intruders invade, is spread very fast. Bullywugs also use their croaking to communicate with actual frogs, specifically giant frogs, which they train as guardians and sometimes even mounts. Now, according to the Monster Manual, Bullywugs are ultimately neutral evil creatures. That is set in stone. No matter what, they are evil. But do they have to be? Being a DM is not about rigidly following rules. Ultimately, it's about creating a fun game for your players and for yourself. And I think a little frog bard character is fun. So let's completely ignore the lore for the Bullywug as I paint a second one. This cute little model is from Threat Factory. Check out the STL in the description below. Anthony came across this model and he just had to print it. I mean, come on, look at this guy. So I wanted to take some time to talk a little bit about creative liberty in D&D. It's fun to learn about and use the existing lore in D&D, but putting your own unique spin on something, I'd argue, is way more fulfilling. Not only for yourself as the DM, but for the players as well. Unless you have a totally newbie group of D&D players, it's likely that your group already knows at least a little bit about D&D lore. So coming across a modified, or maybe even a totally unique monster would be a surprise, and hopefully a welcome one. I was a player in a 6-year D&D campaign that Anthony ran. And it was by far the best D&D campaign I've ever been a part of. And one of the best parts about it was the world that was created by Anthony. Yes, he used existing monsters from the Monster Manual, but most, if not all, had an interesting spin on them that was unique specifically to Anthony's world. So, for my little frog guy, I had fun while I was painting him, coming up with a little story. I like to think that he is the son of the big hulking Bullywug that I painted. Father and son. The father wanted his son to grow up to be a warrior, which is tradition for Bullywugs, but the son didn't like the violent nature of his peers and instead wanted just to become a minstrel. This got the son exiled from the swamps. Music is, of course, looked down upon by bullywugs, so he left to adventure. But the father didn't want to lose his son, so he decided to throw away his life as a bullywug warrior and instead travel with his son as his bodyguard. Maybe they're not like a super intense combat encounter or anything, but I think these two bullywugs make for a pretty fun and memorable story for a party to discover. I don't know. I certainly had more fun thinking up a story for these two than I did reading the actual lore for the bullywug in the monster manual. Let me know what you think of bending D&D's lore in the comments below. And tell me if you have a favorite subversion of a monster that you've run in a game or come across as a player. Now, without further ado, let's take a look at the final paint job. In terms of the actual paint job for these models, I'm not super proud of them, to be honest. I think I could have done better in the values, but I'll try to improve on the next model that I paint. Let me know what you think of them in the comments below. Subscribe if you want to see more of this series. Thanks for watching.